صلى الله عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا شهيد يا غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. نوروا مجالسكم بذكر الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We mentioned the last few nights that the Jahiliyyah society was suffering from a morality crisis, and they had reached a level in their moral decline where a father would bury his daughter alive and he would consider that as a noble, virtuous act, as a moral act, highlighting that their understanding of morality and right and wrong was perverted. And we mentioned last night that the Western societies that we live in are following down the same path of Al-Jahiliyyah. In the same way that the people of Al-Jahiliyyah lost their moral compass, people in the Western society are also losing their moral compass. And people in the West are likewise suffering from a moral decline. We said that the public's attitude towards many moral issues is drastically changing. Many moral issues, many social issues that used to be considered as immoral 50 years ago in the West are now acceptable, are now tolerated, are now considered as normal and okay. And we spoke about that last night, which also highlights that the people in the West's understanding of morality and right and wrong is also altered and perverted, just like the people in Al-Jahiliyyah. And we gave examples to that last night. And we posed a question when we spoke about this morality crisis of Al-Jahiliyyah. We said, how did the people of Al-Jahiliyyah reach such a low level? How? What happened that they reach a level that burying one's girl alive is considered as a good, noble act? And we spoke about the reasons for that 2 nights ago. And tonight we pose the same question towards the Western culture, the Western society. How did the West reach this level of accepting immorality? Why? Why is the West in this moral decline? Because this immorality that exists now and this acceptance of the immorality that you see in the Western society today is no accident. This loss of haya that we see, that people come in the public and they declare the immoral acts that they do. This is no accident, my friends. This is not because of progression. It's not. It's all part of a sinister, well-calculated, sinister and evil plan. You see, in our world today, there are certain groups and entities that shape public opinion. And amongst the most powerful of these groups and entities is the media. The media today, it shapes public opinion. News, magazines, newspapers, television shows, soap operas, and movies that we see in the theaters. All these together, collectively, they shape the public opinion. For example, they shape politics. I read an article a few years ago when the Arab Spring began to spread from country to country. In this article, it said that the Minister of Information of Saudi Arabia, during the Arab Spring 4 or 5 years ago, he was asked by one of his advisors. He told him, Aren't you concerned that we, Saudi Arabia, are also vulnerable to the Arab Spring because it's a dictatorship in Saudi Arabia? And the entire Arab Spring, what was the point? The goal was to topple these dictatorships, correct? Saudi Arabia is amongst the biggest dictatorships. So he told him, aren't you afraid that the Arab Spring will reach Saudi Arabia? Listen to the answer of the information minister of Saudi Arabia. He told him, no, I'm not afraid. Why? He told him, because people only believe and know what they are fed by the media. And in Saudi Arabia, we, the government, we control the media. So, hence, we control people's minds and beliefs. He was highlighting this point, that the government or whoever owns the media, they basically can control people's minds, because the government can easily use media to portray those that are demonstrating, those that are participating in the Arab Spring as what? As mobs, as evil mobs that are what? That are trying to wreak havoc in the society, that are bringing disorder in the society. They're outlaws. And it will show the government as what? The government is a wise, just, good government entity. And all they're trying to do is to bring order to the society, to bring justice to the society. They want to preserve the economy, and all these demonstrations and riots and protests, they will destroy the economy. So they can beautifully use propaganda to change everything. And many people will believe this. So he highlights this fact. As long as you control the media, you control what people believe. And subhanAllah, that's exactly what happened. We rarely heard of anything that happened in Saudi Arabia, because that's how people are brainwashed to believe that this government is what? Is the government of Allah, and the Malik, the king, he is the successor of Rasulullah, he is Wali Amr al-Muslimin, and all that propaganda, all this nonsense. So as long as the media, you own it, you control people's minds. You're able to shape their public opinion. Now, this is in the Middle East. When you come to the West, the same thing applies. The media has a big role in politics. Look at, for example, the United States. Many people, especially here in Canada, they ask, how could the American people elect someone like Trump? Doesn't make sense, right? One of the main factors why Trump was elected is because media. Trump had certain powerful media outlets that would campaign for him 24/7. They would campaign for him. They would defend him, and they would spread propaganda for him, correct? And that's how you see he was elected. That's one of the factors. So the media is very powerful. It could get someone elected, someone who has absolutely no life, no experience in politics, who doesn't know anything about politics. He'll come and become the president. One reason that we thank is the media, very powerful. And not just politics. You find everyday life. In the US, and I'm sure maybe in Canada it's similar, most people, their general information is usually from the media. For example, ask an average American, what do you know about Russia? A distant country, he's never been there. What do you know about Russia? What do you know about China? What do you know about Middle East? What do you know about Africa? Most of their knowledge of the distant countries that they never visit is from the movies. Is from the news. Whatever the media feeds them about these countries, this is what their information is. Likewise, religions. Ask an average person in the US, what do you know about different religions? What do you know about Islam, about Buddhism, about Hinduism? Most of their knowledge is from the media. They're not going to go and open books of Muslims and read them. They're not going to go open, for example, books of Hindus and read them. They're not going to go to a Muslim scholar and ask him, what is Islam about? Most of their knowledge of Islam is from their news channels, from their newspapers, magazines, and their movies. And that's why I always say that one of the reasons for the Islamophobia that you have in the US, that Trump was able to exploit, is because of certain media outlets in the US that they always show Muslims in a negative way. They always present Muslims and Islam in a negative way, and these are violent people, and they want to kill everyone, and they want to establish khilafah, and they want Sharia law, and all this nonsense. The people, usually, most of them, they don't go and research to see, is this true or not? Most of their knowledge information is from the media. So their understanding of Islam, of different religions, is from the media. Now, certain powerful people in the society who have certain agendas, they realize this point, that the media is a very, very, very powerful tool that you can use to what? To brainwash people. To shove your agendas down their throat with the media. To shape their opinion in the way you like. Certain influential, powerful, rich people in the US and all over the world, they realize this. That I have this agenda. I have these goals, interests. How do I basically feed it to the people? How do I basically make sure that the people believe in this? One of the best ways is media. Media is the best tool to shape public opinion. And not only you will find, and not only media shapes politics and general information, but even morality. Even morality, what's right and good, what's right and wrong, and this is what our entire series is about, what's right and wrong, and what's acceptable socially and not, even the media is what shapes that. Yes? You see, in essence, the media should reflect the social values. The media should reflect the values and the beliefs and the opinions of the society. It should only reflect. But now what's happened is the media is not reflecting the values and the beliefs of the public. It is shaping it. It is dictating it. It is writing it. Whatever the media wants, the public follows after the media, but without the people knowing. They subconsciously follow after the media. If the media wants to turn something that is immoral to moral, they could easily do that. Bring me some social issue that's considered by the public as immoral, they could easily change it gradually to normal, to moral. If they want to change something that is good, that is normal, to immoral, they could easily do that. And like I said, many people, they have realized this, that the media is a very powerful weapon that we can use in order to what? In order to feed people what we want them to believe. In order to make people think in the way we want them to think. Programmed human beings, but subconsciously, they don't even know it. For example, when you come to the media and we say how the media can change something moral into immoral, something immoral to moral, look at the media in the West right now, especially in the US. Look at their movies, look at the TV shows. When you open most of these shows, what you find, the common theme in many of the shows and many of the movies, you find that they continuously, in their movies and shows, they continuously portray promiscuity, infidelity, adultery as something exciting and cool. In the show, it shows, for example, a lady, she has an affair, and it shows that she lives such a cool life, and it's such a nice thing to have an affair. In the movie, it shows that. Once they show that 2, 3, 4, 5 times, eventually, people, the public, they will develop the same attitude that, you know what? Maybe this is true. Maybe if I have an affair, maybe if I have 10 girlfriends, if the girl has 10 boyfriends, maybe my life will be much cooler. Just turn on the TV shows and the movies and see how they show you this. They show you this immorality so much that it becomes normal. That people begin to develop an attitude that, you know what, maybe this is right. That's one way, the continuous portrayal of the immorality on TV. And the other way is through celebrities. Like it or not, my friends, we always say this, that the role models of today are whom? Of our youth. In the Western society, the role models of the youth are celebrities. The actors, the singers, the athletes, they are the role models of our youth in the Western society, correct? What happens if your role model one day comes out and says, I had a ibn zina, illegitimate child? When a celebrity comes out in the public and says, I had a child out of wedlock, what type of message is he relating to the youth? That it's okay to do it, correct? That it's normal. If she sees her role model did it, then it makes it okay for her and him to do it. My role model had an illegitimate child out of wedlock. Let me do it. When they see the celebrity dresses immodestly, speaks immodestly, engages in what vulgar and unethical behavior, has 10 affairs, What's the message that they will learn? That this is cool, you do it too, because he's my role model. She's my role model. So these celebrities, since they are the role models of our youth, all this immorality that they practice, it reflects back on the youth. And slowly, all this immorality becomes normal because they see the media always shows it. They see that the celebrities that they love, they are doing it, so let me do it. Correct? So you see how the media is influencing our society? It is shaping our understanding of what's right and wrong. If a young guy wants to know if something is acceptable or not, he doesn't go and ask his parents. He goes and basically sees what celebrities are doing, what these actors are doing, what these singers are doing, what's shown and portrayed in the movies, and this is how he learns what's good and what's bad. And to further highlight this, let's speak more about the third example that we spoke about last night. Last night, we said the greatest example of the moral decline of the West is what? Is the acceptability or the acceptance of homosexuals. We mentioned last night, 50 years ago, homosexuality was unacceptable in the West, here in Canada. We said that no one would dare say, I am a homosexual. In America, in the UK, all these countries, they were looked down upon. Why? Because homosexuality was deemed immoral. This is something wrong. This is something immoral. This is something unacceptable socially. This is here 40, 50 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, it's acceptable. We mentioned some statistics. We said up until the late 80s, if you go back to the late 80s in the United States of America, only 10% of the population, they accepted homosexuality. 90% said this is wrong. And then we said 2017, how many people accept it? Almost 65%. So from the late 1980s till now in the US, there's a 50% boom increase in the acceptability of homosexuality. Just 30 years of time, you had half of the population, they changed their acceptance. They changed their position towards a moral issue. It used to be immoral. Now it's completely moral. Now if I speak against them, I'm the bad one. Did we say this yesterday? Now, do you think this was all an accident? It's just a coincidence? Do you think that this happened because the West is progressing? Because the West is becoming better in terms of human rights year after year? No. We said with morality, yes, with science and technology, no doubt about it. The West is progressing, it's advancing. But when it comes to morality, the West is in a decline. It is regressing. There was no accident. This is not because the West is progressing. Then why? You may ask. Then why did the West and why in America did such a swift change happen? That 30 years ago, most people, 90%, they were against it. But now most people are for it. What happened? This was all part of a sufficiently calculated plan. This was all pre-planned. This is all part of a sufficiently calculated plan. It's all part of a strategically coordinated propaganda campaign. There are certain people that made sure this happens. And it was not possible if it was not for media. They use the media to do this. Don't think this coincidentally happened, that the West is being more and more tolerant and accepting towards the act of homosexuality. No, there's hands behind this. There are certain people with agendas that are shoving this down people's throats without us even knowing it. And I'll demonstrate to you how it happened through the media. But first, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We said that in the late 80s, most people in the US, and I'm sure in Canada, they were against homosexuals. Only 10% were for it. During this time, when that shift began, that most people began to accept it, there was a book written. This book was written in 1989. The title of the book is this: After the Ball, How America Will Conquer Its Fear and Hatred of Gays in the 90s. This is a very, very, valuable book. Not the teachings of it. The teachings are mostly unethical, but it shows you how this movement spread in the US and how most people now they accept it. And this is written in where? In when? 1989. So the year that it was written, the majority of Americans were anti-homosexuality, right? We mentioned the statistics. And basically this book lays out the guidelines and the techniques in order to make homosexuality acceptable. It addresses homosexuals, the gay community in America. It tells them that if you want to be accepted by the public, you have to do this and this and this. An entire book telling them how to make homosexuality acceptable. Shove it down American people's throats. And it's written by two people. One of them was a psychologist, and the other, he's a marketing expert. One is a psychologist, and the other is a marketing expert. Now, in this book, does the author of the book, does he mainly use ethical ways? Does he tell the gay community to use ethical, logical ways to what? To make Americans accept homosexuality? No. It's mainly using unethical ways. Using propaganda, using lies, using the media to what? To appeal to people's emotions, to play with their emotions. It basically it teaches the gay community how to use, one of them is a psychologist, how to use techniques of psychological coercion. Subconsciously what? Subconsciously feed this into the American mind, that gays are good people, that this act of homosexuality is perfectly fine. And I'll tell you a few of the things that the authors write in their book. And this is where we understand how powerful the media is. If it was not for the media, they were not able to normalize homosexuality. They did that with the help of the media. So he says that we have to do three things. Listen carefully, brothers and sisters. And even though this book mentions these guidelines for homosexuality, but you can apply it with any immoral act. Take these three laws and apply it to any immoral act, in 20, 30 years, it will become moral. It will be accepted by the public. The first thing that he says we have to do, this is in 1989. The first thing that he says we have to do in order to overcome the problems and in order to make homosexuality acceptable in America is we have to desensitize the American people. So he says law number one is desensitization. What is desensitization? Let me give you a few examples. Now here in Halifax, imagine, God forbid, one day there is an explosion and a few people die, God forbid. What will happen? There will be shock in the community. There will be an uproar. The news channels from all over Canada, all over the world will come and they will have a 10-day coverage, correct? Why? Because it's something that we've never witnessed before, correct? A few people die in an explosion. So there will be shock, there will be uproar, people will be speaking about it for months. Now, imagine, God forbid, it happens a second time. There will also be uproar, correct? And everyone will be talking about it because it's such a sensitive issue. Innocent people are dying. Imagine if it happens 3, 4, 10, 20 times. The 20th time, you think people will be too much concerned? No. And the greatest proof to that is what? Come to Iraq. Come to Iraq and see, for the past 15 years, maybe we've had 50,000 explosions, correct? Now, when you hear in the news that 100 people died in an explosion in Iraq, does anybody care anymore? Be honest. Nobody cares. Why? Aren't these innocent human beings? Even me, who is an Iraqi person, I don't even care. When I'm watching the news, I sit on the couch and then I see the headlines. They tell me, for example, there's an earthquake here, there's a hurricane here, and I tune in. But then, 150 people died in Iraq. Right away I change. Who cares? Because why? Because we hear it every single day. Once you hear every day there's an explosion, there's an explosion, there's an explosion, what happens? You become desensitized. It becomes something normal, right? Does it mean you're happy? Does it mean you don't care about innocent people dying? No, I care, but I don't show it anymore. I don't express shock and uproar anymore because I can't express shock and uproar every single day. When it becomes every day, we become desensitized. And that's what happened and happens in Iraq. Even the people sometimes in Iraq, people walking in the street, they hear an explosion and they don't even care. They just continue their average lives. They're desensitized. This is one example with an explosion. Another example, imagine you have someone who's very religious and his entire life he's lived in Karbala, Najaf. Karbala and Najaf, and especially if he's lived around the haram of Imam Hussein or Imam Ali, he's never ever seen a woman without hijab because everyone there wears hijab and he's never left. Imagine one day you take him out and you bring him on a plane and he comes to Halifax and you take him to a park in the summer and he sees women half naked. What will happen to him? He will be shocked. What is this? Look at these women. They're not wearing hijab. To him, this is something new. He's never seen a woman go out without hijab. He will be in shock. Allahu Akbar. There's so much fasad. There's so much corruption, right? Let him live in the same society for a few more days. Let him go to the supermarket. He'll see a woman without hijab. Let him go to the bank. Woman without hijab. Let him go to school. He'll see a woman without hijab. Everywhere, woman without hijab. After a few weeks, he'll become desensitized. He won't say anything. He'll look and look back. Nothing. There's absolutely no expression. There's no shock, there's no uproar. Why? Because he saw it so much that now he's indifferent about it. He doesn't say anything about it. Anytime when something becomes too much, we become what? We become desensitized. Now that we understand this concept, since we said one of the authors, he's a psychologist. He knows how to manipulate the brain. He knows how the brain works. He says in order for us to make Americans accept homosexuals, we have to desensitize them. What does he mean? You see, 50 years ago, if you would go to the park in America, you would see two men or two women holding hands. This would create uproar. People that were walking there, they would maybe even go and hit that person. How dare you hold another man's hand? This is so scandalous. This is so unacceptable. This is immoral. And then maybe they would even put it in the news, the local news, that we found two men holding hands because it was something rare. No one would do it in the public. People were sensitive about it, right? And this is in 1989. The authors, they say that the first step in overcoming this rejection of homosexuality, we have to desensitize the people towards homosexuality. We have to make sure that homosexuality becomes something common. So that when someone hears, oh, that I have a homosexual neighbor, it's normal. I have someone who is gay in my class, that's normal. Once you hear and see so much of them, you're no longer what? You're no longer shocked when you see one of them. You're desensitized. And then he says, and one of the best ways to do that is not to bring homosexuals and fill the streets, because that's dangerous. Back then it was dangerous for a homosexual to walk in the streets with, if people knew he was homosexual. Maybe he would be assaulted. So he says the safest way in the book is to use media. How? We have to make sure that we flood the minds of people with conscious ads that are related to homosexuals. You turn on the TV, you see an ad about them. You go to the movies, you see something about them. You drive on the freeway, you see a billboard about them. They're all over the place, in advertisement and in the media. Eventually, gradually, you'll become desensitized, correct? And he says if we do this, if we flood the media with homosexual related marketing, he says the least thing we will achieve is desensitization. People will no longer, speak against us and make an uproar against us, and they'll be indifferent about us. So he says this is the first goal if we want to overcome our challenges. And this you can apply with any immorality. If there is something immoral in the society, if it's rare, people, they will look down upon it, they'll speak against it. But when it increases and spreads, eventually people become desensitized. They become indifferent about it. He says step one. And then he goes to step two. He says the second step that we have to do in order to overcome our challenges, he calls this conversion. He says it's not enough that others, they are indifferent about us. They don't speak against us. But in his heart, he hates me. That's not enough. We want them to love us even in their hearts. He wants the American people, even in their hearts, to accept homosexual, to see it as something average. He calls this second step conversion. How do we do that? He says, if you were to ask most people, why do they reject us? Why do they reject homosexuals? He says, it's because they see us as weirdos. They see us as strange, sick weirdos that are deranged, or we are immoral sinners. So because they see us as weirdos, he says, in order for us to make them love us, we have to show them that we're normal human beings. Because back then, 50, 40 years ago, a homosexual in average American's eyes was someone who's weird, who's strange, who's an outcast. You know, he'd never even seen us. It was like an alien. To them, a homosexual was like an alien. He says, in order to make them love us and like us and accept us, we have to highlight our normalcy. Wait a minute. Homosexuals are normal people. They're average people. They're just like straight people. How did they do that? Once again, they use the media. You see how the media changes our perception towards moral issues? How? He mentions three important things. Number one, he says we have to use celebrities. How? This is all theoretic talk in the 1980s. It's not, so far, when he writes it, nobody had done it yet. He says, number one, we have to search for, amongst the celebrities, is there any gay celebrities or not? Maybe there are, but they're hiding it because they're afraid. They don't want to face the backlash. They don't want to be stigmatized. So if we do find one, we have to encourage them to what? To go out and announce that I am gay. Once a celebrity does it, it becomes what? It becomes normal. Remember we said celebrities, they're always admired. So if a celebrity does it, it becomes normal. That's the first way we use celebrities. A second way, he says that we have to incorporate in our movies and shows, we need actors to play the roles of gay characters. And in their movie, they show that gay guy is such a nice guy, such an educated guy, he's such a merciful guy, he's such a normal guy, he's just like any other person. And that's why you see after the 80s and after that in the 90s, you had so many shows in America that had what? That had characters that played the role of a gay person. Why? Don't think that this is just, part of movies and a part of acting. No, this is all well calculated. So that subconsciously you begin to admire this character, and this character is gay. You know what? Gay people are good people. Or that homosexuals are what? Homosexuality is not a bad action. Because I like this actor, and I like what he does. And amongst his actions is what? Is homosexuality. So we use them to act these roles. Number three, we bring straight celebrities and we give them money. We have to encourage them to endorse homosexuality. That's why from time to time you'll see an actor will come out and write an article that homosexuality is not bad. Or he will tweet something about homosexuality. Who said this is bad? Why? You think this is all a coincidence? No, this is all planned from before. There's hands behind it. So number one, he says we have to use the celebrities. Number two, the second thing he says in the book, the author, he says we have to use the big lie effect, the big lie theory. And that's why I said, unfortunately, many of the techniques mentioned in this book are unethical techniques, using lies. He says that many Americans, they believe that there aren't too many homosexuals in America. Maybe they're 1%. And that's what leads them to believing that it's a sickness. There's only 1%. What we have to portray that no, there's many homosexuals. And then he says we have to promote and spread the 10% myth. What is the 10% myth? He says we have to promote this idea that 10% of America are gays. He says even though that this is not true, but we have to promote this lie. The big lie theory. The big lie theory that Hitler used to use. That lie and lie and lie until people believe you. And someone else now uses it in America, right? Their president. He lies and lies and lies until people believe him. You may laugh at this theory, but it's psychologically proven that if you lie and lie and lie 100,000 times, people will eventually believe it. So, he says in the book, we have to use this theory. So we have to spread this myth, this lie, that 10% of the population are gay. Why? Because when the people, they see that there's too many of them, they'll say, you know what, maybe this is natural. Or else, why is there 10%? If it was something unnatural, if they were perverts and weirdos, it'd be 1%, not 10%. That's the first lie. The second lie, he says that most Americans, when you ask them, why does someone become gay? They'll tell you that this is not natural. You either become gay because you want to become a sinner, a wicked, evil sinner, or because you're sick, you have a psychological problem, or because you are recruited by others. So the society sometimes encourages you to become gay, you become gay. So the point is, most Americans believe that it's not natural to become gay. This is in the 80s. This is not a natural thing. We choose to become gay. Or this is what the society makes me gay. He says we have to disprove and debunk these theories. And then this is what he says, even if these theories are right, I don't care if they're right. The point is we have to debunk them. And we have to promote this idea that homosexuality is a natural feeling. You are born homosexual. Nobody chooses to be homosexual. It's a natural feeling. Once we promote this idea, can you blame a homosexual for practicing homosexuality? You can't, because he'll tell you it's natural. I was born this way. It's like someone's born blind. Can you tell him, why are you blind? I was born this way. And subhanAllah, this myth, this lie now has spread all across the Western world. That they'll tell you it's a natural feeling. There's two types of human beings. There's the straight one and there's the gay one. And most people have bought this. And unfortunately, even our youth, sometimes I have youth in the Q&A sessions, they tell me in my university, this is what they teach me, that this is something natural. This is natural. That I, as a human being, can either be born as straight or gay. What do I tell them? SubhanAllah, you see how some of these techniques, this is in the 80s, how they succeeded so greatly. People bought this lie that this is what? This is immutable. This is natural. You can't change it. So this is the second way that he used for conversion, to make people like and accept homosexuality. And the third way, he says that we have to focus on our victimization. We have to show everyone that we're victims and we are what? We're being bullied, we're being discriminated against. So appeal to people's emotions. Show these poor homosexuals, they're suffering, they're this and that. So people begin to sympathize with them. And subhanAllah, this is what happened. You remember 2 years ago when that so-called ISIS guy, he went to that gay club in Orlando and he killed so many people. What happened in the world? Didn't people begin to sympathize with them? Now, even though we condemn those acts of violence and what that person did was wrong, but however, an immoral act does not change to being moral because the person is victimized. Yes, victimizing that person is wrong. We're not saying that homosexuals are bad people. They could be the best people with the purest hearts, the nicest people. All we are saying is this act of homosexuality is immoral. So the third way is to what? To focus on our victimization. In the movies show, in the ads show that, you know what? Show a person who is supposedly gay, either acting as gay or really gay, and he's struggling so much, and he has to face so much problems in his life, and eventually people will begin to sympathize. So this is what the second tool. The first, desensitization. The media desensitizes us by always showing us immorality. The second is conversion. Not only desensitize, but bring celebrities and present immorality in a good way. And this is when the youth, they will begin to love immorality and see it as acceptable because the athletes endorse it, because the actors do it. And subhanAllah, just yesterday, I was not aware of this. A brother, he told me that now in the US, there is a show, there's a TV show, that one of the actors in the show is a Muslim muhajjaba, wearing hijab, a Muslim hijabi who's a lesbian, who's a homosexual. A Muslim muhajjaba who, I don't know if she's really a lesbian or she's acting the role of a lesbian. And this is in America. And what's the point of this? So that the Muslims likewise gradually begin to accept homosexuality as something okay. You could be a good practicing Muslim wearing hijab and be homosexual at the same time. There's nothing wrong with that. Do you see how the media desensitizes us and it shoves what they want down our throats? Don't think that this is innocent. No, this is all pre-planned and calculated. And that's why a statistic that I read in The Independent, it said that Muslims, the majority of Muslims in America now, they accept homosexuality as well. 52% of American Muslims, they accept homosexuality now. While if you go back 15 years ago, it was much less. It was only maybe 20%. It's growing faster than Christians. Muslims are more likely to accept homosexuality than Christians. So number 2 is conversion. And then number 3, he says the third, final part of sealing the hatred and the unacceptance towards homosexuality, he calls it jamming. What is jamming? He says, if anyone opposes to homosexuality, if anyone speaks out against us, we have to silence them. We have to vilify him. We have to defame them. We have to slander them. We have to launch a what? A smear campaign against them. And amongst the ways they do it is through the media. For example, there'll be a movie, and the evil guy in the movie, he's what? He's portrayed as being a homosexual. Not a homosexual, but someone who's against homosexuals. So in that way, subconsciously, you'll hate that guy, and you'll hate whoever is against homosexuals. And not only that, but subhanAllah, they make names. They have created names for those individuals that are against homosexuals. What do they call them? Homophobic. Have you seen that word? That didn't exist in the dictionary before. Homophobic person was a person that had morality 30 years ago. Now, they consider it as a disease or a psychological problem. Someone that hates homosexuals for no reason. They even create names to scare, oh, this person is a homophobic individual. They'll write against you in the media, in the newspapers. Whoever dares speak up against them, they will take him down. This is why he says in the 80s, we have to do this. He says if religion decides to oppose us, we take religion down too. What do we say? We say religion is backwards. Religion is out of date. And we even fight against religion if religion wants to fight us. So the third step is to silence the opposition. Do you see how smart this 3-step campaign is? Don't think that this is easy. This is very, very well calculated. It's a very sophisticated system. Number 1, desensitize. Number 2, convert them. Use the media to make them love. And number 3, silence the opposition. And then at the end, he writes a big note. He says in the end, all of this is theoretical talk. Will we fail or will we succeed? I don't know. He said, but if we want to succeed, we have to flood the media. If we don't flood the media with all of these things, these pro-homosexual content, we will fail. And he says the only way we will flood the media is by getting 3 things. Number 1, we need money, lots of money. Of course, it's not free. Number 2, manpower. And number 3, he says we need to unite the gay community. If we do these 3 things, he says in many years, he says in the 90s, he says the title of the book is How America Will Conquer Its Fear and Hatred Towards of Gay People in the 90s. And subhanallah, brothers and sisters, it's 2017. It's as if that guy was telling the future. I don't care if the gay community really did follow those tactics, all of them or not. But what you find today is 30 years ago, 10% accepted, now 65% accept. And subhanAllah, many of the techniques, they did use them. Can anyone now speak against them? Can anyone say that this is an immoral act? We're not saying that, instigate violence or incite violence. No, we're against violence. Can I go on the minbar right now? Can I go somewhere public, in the media, on a news channel, and say that homosexuality is immoral? They will take you down, wallahi. They will make so many things against you. They will slander you and launch a huge smear campaign against you. That's why even Muslims now are afraid. Not only are they accepting it, but they're afraid to voice their opposition to it. All of this, my friends, shows you how powerful the media is. SubhanAllah, it's the year 2017. They have their rights. The society accepts them. We mentioned it used to be considered by psychiatrists as a mental disorder. It's no longer a mental disorder. They have their rights. It's accepted. Certain religious denominations are beginning to accept them. All of this highlights to you what? The power of media. Media is so powerful, my friends. And there are certain powerful people that control the media. And God knows what they will do, my friends. God knows what will happen in 10 years. God knows what will happen in 50 years. Will incest become something acceptable? Yes, I think so. Anything that you think is too wild, wallahi, a day will come here in the West, it will become acceptable and you will not be able to speak against it. And this is mentioned in our ahadith. In one of the ahadith of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he speaks about alamatul dhuhur, the signs of reappearance. And I mentioned it in my series about the signs of reappearance. He says a time will come, and this time and these signs will be signs of reappearance of the 12th Imam. He says one of the signs is وَرَأَيْتَ النِّسَاء يَتَزَوَّجْنَ النِّسَاء. You will see that women will marry women, men will marry men legally, and they will be considered as a married couple. This is one of the signs of the reappearance. And then he says, don't think it will stop here. The Imam says it will get worse. We're not there yet, but we will go. Yes, we are at the first step where men marrying men, women marrying women. But the rest of the things that the Imam mentions, and I'll mention them, we're not there yet. We will get there. He says, وَرَأَيْتَ النِّسَاء يَتَزَوَّجْنَ النِّسَاء. And then he says, وَرَأَيْتَ الرَّجُلِ يُعَيَّرْ عَلَىٰ إِتْيَانِ النِّسَاء. Allahu Akbar. Not only will a man marry a man, he says a time will come if you're straight, it will be aib to be considered straight. Remember 50 years ago, if someone was found accused of being homosexual, he would be what? Looked down upon? The Imam says a time will come in which you will be looked down upon if you're straight. They will say, look at this guy. He wants to marry a woman. And they will see marriage of a man to a woman as a bad thing, as an immoral act. You see how our understanding of morality can get so perverted? So if a man marries a woman marries a man, this will be looked down upon. This will be looked as an immoral act. Yes, maybe 50, 100 years that will happen. And then the Imam says, وَرَأَيْتَ ذَاتَ الْمَحَارِمِ وَرَأَيْتَ ذَوَاتِ الْمَحَارِمِ يُنْكَحْنَ ذَوَاتِ الْأَرْحَامِ يُنْكَحْنَ. He says, and you will see ذَوَاتُ الْأَرْحَامِ, family members marry each other. A father marrying the daughter, a brother marrying his sister, a mother marrying her son. The Imam says, yes, this will happen. Why? Because when there is no morality, when there is no definite way, constant way of defining morality, everything will become halal. Everything will become okay. And all of this, my friends, it highlights one important point, that we human beings need religion. We need religion in our lives. We cannot live without religion. Religion is the only thing that will give us a constant, stable moral compass. Because without religion, how could I tell what's moral and immoral? Do I follow the media? Is the media what teaches me what's okay and what's not okay? Is the movies of Hollywood and the shows that we see on TV, is that what tells me what's acceptable and not acceptable? If you have no religion that tells you this is aib, this is haram, this is not acceptable, we'll become like animals. And this is what's happening in the West. Without religion, we'll be lost. Just like Jahiliyyah. Rasulullah was sent with Islam to show them this is the right path. This is what's moral and what's immoral. Without religion, we'll be lost. We don't know what's right. We don't know what's wrong. The media will govern us. And the media will teach us and show us and brainwash us in the way that it wants. And just wait, you'll see it will get worse and worse and worse. So we have to be extra careful, my friends, not to go with the flow. We have to be careful for our youth, and I'll speak about our youth and how we can protect them from this immoral crisis, this morality crisis that we see in the West. But the point is, the underlying point is that the only way to preserve ourselves from falling in this moral decline is to stay adhering to our religion. Religion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us what's right and what's wrong, what's moral, immoral. If we live in the West, khalas, we no longer can tell what's right and wrong. Tonight is the 6th night of the month of Muharram. And usually the 6th night, we mention the musibah of al-ashab, the companions of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. It is narrated, and I mentioned this during my first night, in the first lecture, that Al-Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam, the night of Ashura, he gathered his companions. He gathered his companions and he began to tell them, my dear companions, the enemies want me. They don't want you. They will only kill you because you are siding with me and supporting me. So leave. He turned off the candles. After that, he turned them on. He saw none of them had left. They were all staying there. They told him, Aba Abdullah, it is an honor for us to fight for you. Aba Abdullah, we will never leave you. Even one of them, Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, he said, Ya Aba Abdullah, if I were to be killed, if I were to be cut by the enemies with the sword into 1,000 pieces and then burned, and then my ashes would be dispersed in the air, and that would be done to me 1,000 times, I would never leave you, Ya Aba Abdullah. We will never abandon you. They were loyal to Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam. They loved him. They gave everything they had to him. Amongst one of the greatest of Al-Ashab was whom? Habib ibn Mudahir. Habib ibn Mudahir, he came late to Karbala. Imam Al-Hussein, he gave all the standards, he kept one. They asked him, who is this for? He told them, this is for Habib. Habib ibn Mudahir, he arrived. Imam Al-Hussein was already in Karbala. He came down from his horse. He quickly went down and he began to kiss the feet of Aba Abdullah. And he began to tell him, Nafsi laka al-waqa, Sayyidi ya Aba Abdullah. May my life be sacrificed for you. Do you see how they spoke to their Imam? How they behaved in front of their Imam? And then Zainab alayha salam, she heard that someone came. She asked who was it? They told her Habib ibn Mudahir. She told Ali al-Akbar, her nephew, tell Habib that Zainab sends her salam to you. Ali al-Akbar came to Habib, he told him, oh Habib, my aunt Zainab sends her salam to you. Habib, he fell on the floor, he took from the dust of Karbala and he began to pour it over his head. He began to cry and he said, Man ana wa tusallim alayya bintu Amir al-Mu'mineen. Who am I? That the daughter of Ali, Zainab, said salam to me. This is the greatest honor for me that Zainab says salam to me. Do you see how loyal they were to Aba Abdullah? One of them by the name of Muslim ibn Awsaja. When Muslim ibn Awsaja, when he was struck with an arrow and he was dying, his final moments, Habib ibn Mudahir came to him. He asked him, do you have any last wills, any final wills? All he said was one word. He pointed towards Aba Abdullah. He's on the floor, he's bleeding, he's about to die. He pointed towards Aba Abdullah and he told Habib, Ya Habib, usika bihadha al-gharib khayra. Never leave Aba Abdullah. All I have to tell you is sacrifice your life for Aba Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. As long as there you are breathing, don't let Aba Abdullah, don't let any harm afflict him. These were the loyal companions of Hussein. That's why he said, Wallah, inni ma ra'aytu ashaban khayran min ashabi. Allah gave me the most loyal companions, that they never left Aba Abdullah. And he had to see these loyal companions one after the other. They went to the battlefield and they were killed right in front of his eyes. So Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam, one after the other, they were killed, until none of his companions were remaining. He stayed all alone in the desert of Karbala. He went on a hill. He began to call their names, Ya Habib, Ya Zuhair, Ya Muslim, where are you, my companions? But all he could see from them was their bloody, mutilated bodies on the sands of Karbala. The Imam began to feel lonely. So he began to cry out, Allah, hal min nasirin yansur ألا هل من معين يعينني. Is there no one that wants to protect the grandson of Rasulullah? لما رأى السبط أصحاب الوفاء قتلوا نادى أبا الفضل أين الفارس البطل وأين من دنيا الأرواح قد بذلوا Everyone جميعا معه. بالأمس كانوا معي واليوم قد رحلوا. بالأمس كانوا معي واليوم قد رحلوا. He began to speak to his companions. يا أصحاب الصفا ويا فرسان الهيجة، ما لي أناديكم فلا تجيبون، وأدعوكم فلا تسمعون، أنيام أنتم أرجوكم تنتبهون. My dear companions, why is it that I call you but you do not answer me? Didn't you say we will never leave you alone between the enemies? Now I am all alone between the enemies. Are you asleep? That's why you do not respond. Or is it because your deaths have prevented you from supporting your Imam in Karbala? And then once again he began to call them, Ya Habib, Ya Muslim, Ya Zuhair, Ya Burair, قوموا عن نومتكم يا كرام، وادفعوا هؤلاء الطغاة اللئام عن حرم رسول الله. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون.
أنا ما فتحت العين إلا والحسين أمامي، ونطقت أول كلمة باسم الحسين كلامي، باسم الحسين كلامي، فنموت وهو معي وفي لحمي وفي أعظامي، وقصدته